and prayer and understanding that it is our hope that we can weave a new image of how the United States learns to be in the web of community and cultures, nations and states, and human beings across the world. We welcome those gathered here. It's in Chicago, in the ICA building, and over an event that is focused on archives. The archives of the Institute of Cultural Affairs, and we are remembering, in one sense, our ancestors, those who have gone before us in forging out understandings and practices that we might bring forward. So we're calling this session, Welcome to Imaginal Education. Now, and then, and now. And we welcome those of you who are participating online. We look forward in the future that there can be interaction. We know that this body of work was created around the world and out of different cultural understandings. And so as we look into this body of work, the big we who have made important contributions are being remembered. We're going to jump into an experience that will be led by Kay Hayes Gadway, and we call her Kay's. And she's going to invite our participation. So I would say I'm Elise Packard. Hayes and I have put this together, and we'll be calling for all of us to be contributors. So, Kay?
I need a younger volunteer. Somebody maybe from the staff, because everybody else is an older volunteer, who is not afraid to get their hand wet or to touch things kinesthetically. Would you like to? Sure. That's called volunteering. The rest of you will need to stand up to see the demonstration. One moment. Because of the light, you just stand there so you can see the picture. What did you feel?
I felt wet and cool. I didn't feel much here. I felt it when I touched the rock. It was gritty. Then this was more coarse and kind of hard. This was just under prickly, not quite prickly. Then gritty again on the rock, and the sand was then sandy and all over the place. And then the water was cleansing and cool, and then that was coarse and rocky, and that was crumbly.
And what did you see? Anybody, what did you see? One word or two words or two. What did you see happening out here?
Her copying you.
And so what did you see?
Following along, putting her hands in everything.
Okay, putting her hands in everything. What else did you see? gritty sound? Okay, here is the question. What did you imagine was going on?
I thought she was gonna be blindfolded and have to guess what these things were.
Ah, okay. What did you imagine was going on?
Getting in touch with nature.
Getting in touch with nature. Okay, now, this is a classroom lesson from a friend of mine in Battleground, Washington State. And thank you very much if you would like to leave today. So this will change a little bit. This is a classroom lesson. What lesson is being taught? Do you imagine?
About the census.
About the census. Someone else, what lesson do you imagine is being taught?
About the earth.
About the earth. Now, I
The seniors go first.
Say again?
The seniors go first.
The seniors go first, okay? Now, this is a history lesson. So what lesson in history is being taught? You can guess because, you know, you don't know.
The creation.
The creation. What lesson in history is being taught?
The phases of living or inanimate things in the history of the globe.
Wonderful. This teacher who got the award of the year as history teacher about 10 years ago, this is a lesson about the Monroe Document. Monroe Document. 1824, it was stated in the first draft that from sea to shining sea and all of the surrounding area could not be colonized. And what we learned was we went from the sea to the desert, to the mountains, to the plains, to the mountains, to the desert, to the sea, and all of South America. That is an imaginal way of teaching a lesson. Now you all know the Monroe Document. And Elise will continue.
What happened to that?
Our session is focusing on imaginal education, then and now and then. And what we've been doing in our archive work is discerning what has been the same, no matter here or there, or then or now, and how has it been evolved and therefore could be made more available to more people where new contributions could be made and new insights could burst forth. We're picturing that approach to this body of work as that which reminds us of a flower. It has roots. It has roots in theory, in image theory, in cognitive psychology, in neuroscience. There are academic studies about that theory. It has been developed over time and in different places and in different cultures, and an approach has emerged. An approach that could work with teens, with young mothers, with gang members, with college professors here in Africa, in China, in Taiwan, and globally. There are tools that have been honed along the way, and there are applications. Programs like Training Inc., exercises like the Machakos game, programs like the Fifth City Preschool, like the Learning Basket, like the Learning Lab for teachers, that actually we would be so bold to say that imaginal education in this body of work with these roots infuses the life and work of the Institute of Cultural Affairs in all its forms, bold statement. We are beginning to see results over time, after 50 years, over generations, in different locations. And some of those results have been documented and will be documented. And you academics out there, welcome to this task, because evidence-based is the message of the day. What is the evidence that this approach works? Our session today is going to be focusing on the approach, and we will allude to applications. And we're going to ask you for tools, all right? Then we're going to pull the curtain on this session. We're going to invite an elder in our midst to come around the drum, and we're going to be in a campfire. And we're going to be able to ask questions of that elder about the origin soil that gave rise to these roots. So think about your questions about way back when, and we'll see if that elder will appear. I'm going to start a bit touching on the theory. This is brush strokes. It's elaborated in many ways in various dissertations and master's theses, and this paper, The Evolving Resource of Imaginal Education, but can be summarized quickly and be sort of top of mind in 5 points. First is that everyone operates out of images. When Kay was leading us through this exercise, I was thinking, I'm an American. Wow. Trekking across, claiming the land, and I ended up on the border of Mexico. I'm an American, but I'm also a border woman, child of the border. Mexico, Texas, U.S., Mexico, all stood up together. We, from the time we were born on the border, we knew there was not this story only. And in fact, we would say, having been dominated, that there were a lot of tears in that. But my image, child of the border. Messages, hay dos idiomas y hablamos ambos desde el principio. No hay solamente un idioma, una sola perspectiva. We can see life from 2 sides and 2 languages at least. Strong message. In fact, those messages that create the images are so strong that we take them in. And we take them in through our eyes, through our ears, through what we do and participate, what we taste. We didn't grow up on ketchup, we grew up on salsa. We didn't grow up on macaroni, we grew up on frijoles. So our behaviors create those messages that create the images, and those images govern how we behave. I hear the Monroe Doctrine, I say, whoa, how audacious is that? That's not my story, because I'm operating out of a different image. Child of the border. I cross borders. I go back and forth. Messages shape images, and images can be changed. Now guess what? Another volunteer. Come on up. I'm going to ask you to go like this with me. Like this. It's not hard. Just need a volunteer. Because there is a struggle here. We can say messages shape images, and images can change, but guess what? Not so easy. There is a struggle that goes on because of values. Leslie has some values. I have some values. She's telling me, oh, you're an American. I'm saying, I'm a border girl. Let's step in and be an American. No, I'm a border girl. And am I going to, with this value struggle, even let in some messages Like, by the way, you're going to have a passport that says you're a U.S. citizen. Oh, is that message going to change my image? I'm told I have to speak English. Oh, is that going to change my image? And so we struggle back and forth, and this takes a long time to think. That's not true. So when images change images change behavior. And that struggle goes on and over time. And when one embraces a different image, it shows up in behavior. It was 18 years old after having been raised on the border that I decided to learn to speak Spanish. Because American privilege, Mexican not so good, American privilege. But with a clear decision to operate out of a global image, global citizen, child of the border, I decided to go live in Juarez and learn Spanish. Y ahora puedo hablar español. Si hay alguien que está allá por computador, bienvenidos, estamos aquí. Y we can communicate with facility out of this new image, global person. Now, why does this work? Over and over again, different cultures, different settings. It has to do with the fact that you and I have a brain. Yeah, now, we count to 3, and everybody touch their brain. 1, 2, 3. Okay. All right, very good. There's a lot of this. Mr. Dick Alton had a different response. And I believe someone else had a different response. This Steve had this response. All right. Well, someone might have gone like this. Someone might have pointed to their toe because we have a brain system. It is running throughout our bodies and can be described in many ways and daily more ways. And now I'm going to use a simple way to say we have 3 operating parts of the brain. One of these might be named the natural brain. When you and I and our little ones are born, this part of the brain has these brain cells all connected with the synapses or bridges intact. So there's a natural functioning. We can be born breathing. We can be born with a heart beating. We can suck. We can swallow. And all of those are natural functions. We are also born with an unfinished brain. That is the feeling brain, the emotional brain. And here, the cells are not connected. This is unfinished business. And so, with every interaction between mom and baby, dad and baby, Aunt Tilly and baby, brother and baby, whether it's something that baby hears, smells, touches, tastes, these are the interactions that create these connections or synapses in the feeling part of the brain. And in our early lives, this was the most dominant part of our brains. We are born to be feeling creatures, and it matters all through our lives. And then there's the thinking part, the part of the brain that says, you know, I'm the real brain. Well, this is the cognitive part where judgment, decision-making, creativity, and such are all developed. Doesn't even begin until you're 18 months old and really isn't fully formed throughout our lives. But again, with interactions, learning numbers, letters, sounds, concepts, theories, ideas, it happens up here in the cognitive brain. Well, so what? Here we are living in an information age. We are being swamped with messages that are coming at a rapid pace, and many of us are operating in huge fragmentation, going from this to that, to Facebook, to Twitter, to Tumblr, to email. And the question of integration of the brain function is at hand. Well, bless those elders all who ever invented ORID, or however you express the levels of consciousness that are nurtured through a question-asking methodology or a workshop methodology or action planning or strategic planning, because it is that movement that takes the cognitive, the factual, down to the feeling, up to interpretation, and then out here. And somehow, of course, our stomachs and guts are involved. But I want to speak to the stomach-gut response, as well as talk about consciousness. Now, this is an irritation. I'm going to get over here in a way that those of you who are on the left side can have visual access, and as well as those on the right. Let's see if it works. So, if we have these three functions of brain operating, what does it have to do with images? There is a study of consciousness, which is evolving and probably the edge of mind study in neurobiology now. And it's very hard to picture on a flat surface. That being said, here we go. We can talk about three minds and maybe picture it this way. So there is the conscious mind. The conscious mind is what we know about. It is where we are aware of everything around us. We know we're sitting in a room, we know there's a presentation, some things are clicking, some things are understandable, other questions are being raised. That's the conscious mind. And the conscious mind is very orderly, and it's very sometimes predictable. Another aspect of mind is the subconscious mind. Now there is a fun aspect of mind. Out of bounds, rapidly processing, and very dominant. And very dominated by the feeling mind. So, those who measure this kind of thing have said there is a big difference between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind in how it operates and how many bits of information per second it processes. Now, this might be debated, but it's showed up in academic work that the conscious mind is processing 40 bits of information every second. Pretty good. The unconscious mind is processing 20 million bytes per second. Real different. So we need two volunteers to come up. One to be the conscious mind, very predictable. And then the unconscious mind, quite unpredictable. And you know there's a difference in timing and motion here. All you have to do is come up and do a little dance. Little conscious mind dance or a little subconscious mind dance. It's real fun. Can't make a mistake. Oh, Terry!
Unconscious mind.
Oh, you're good. Oh, really? It's a stretch verb, okay? Unconscious Stephanie. I was called. Called up. She didn't say no. Okay. So, yeah, don't be so in the spotlight. Okay. So, say that. Subconscious mind. Terry's got that conscious mind going. Unconscious mind. Very good. Let's give them one. And I will mention that there is a third dimension of consciousness, that is the unconscious mind. This is the one that has messages being delivered and you're asleep, dreams, meditation, no measurement there in print. So what? It has to do with that rapidity of processing messages. So because the subconscious mind is processing so many messages so quickly, it bundles these messages. And when it bundles the message, it creates an image. It's as if it's an umbrella made up of so many messages, something to stand under. Aha. So how does that work? Well, someone says, well, I'm from Santa Fe, and I'm from New Mexico, and we're in the Southwest. And so someone says, oh, you live in the desert, like Phoenix. And then that creates an umbrella, an image that I'm standing under in the mind of the other person. Or someone says, well, you know, he was talking about global consciousness and the environment and how we need to be sensitive to other perspectives. Oh, liberal. Umbrella, liberal, now you're under it. And that's how it happens. It happens so quickly. And, importantly, you reflect the emotion. Oh, he's a liberal. Oh, he's such a right-winger. And those labels come out like that. And that's an image. So our question then is, how do we either affirm those images or begin to shift them and shape them differently? And because we live always in delivering messages and receiving messages, it's as if we are in a rainstorm, hailstorm, and tornado all at once, full of messages. The question is, what are the images that we're going to live out of? And how do we help those images be the most creative, not only for ourselves, but for the world in which we're living and operating? So the question of approach to this is one that we've been working on for more than 50 years, and with wild experimentation. Sorry about this. And coming up with the question, well, how do you set an environment that will nurture the creative shaping and shifting of images? Now, have you ever run into someone who's operating out of a negative self-image? Anybody? Anybody?
Never.
Jenny, can you share that?
Sure. I work with a lot of women who were recently released from prison. And I would say the vast majority of them think that they've never done anything correct in their life.
Yeah. So I don't know how to be correct. I'm kind of a loser. Okay, anybody else have an example of someone that you have run into? Yeah, Sarah?
I had an old office mate that when she was given a Kindle Fire, she said, oh, now I'll never be able to use it. I don't have the internet. She was never happy about it. She just immediately went to how this is creating more problems in her life.
All right, so that I really can't. I'm so burdened. All right. So how do you work with that? I mean, you're going to live and share an office, huh? You're doing interactions with young women that might have a possibility of a whole new future. How do we, with each other and ourselves, create an environment that allows the shaping and shifting of images? So there are dynamics that are part of that. One is to beckon participation, get them talking, jumping in, sharing ideas. Another is touching the deeps. What do you really care about? How might what you care about be part of what we do? Expanding the context. Well, is it about the Kindle? Is it about technology? Is it about learning? Is it about functioning? Is it about doing your job? Is it about enjoying life? Creating the context larger than what someone's operating in. It's about stimulating the imagination. What if you became the guru of Kindles in this office? What if the future was quite different from the past and the specifics of that? And then encouraging critical thinking, that integration of mind that allows people in their freedom to come up with their own future. So these are dynamics that are spinning like a kaleidoscope, beating like drums. So I'm going to ask you now, out of your experience in life, doesn't have to be that you've been a teacher, but it could involve that, to just write down one tool that you have used to do this work of shaping and shifting images. One tool. Now, a tool could look like a map. I hang a map in my office. That's a tool. It could be a name. I decided to change my name, and so that created a different image. But it was a tool. It's a label on me. So just put down one tool on a sheet, but decide to print large so it can be seen, and then use an economy of words, not a big paragraph about all the maps you considered first and then second, but just, I have a map of the world. It's a tool. All right, so just do one. Share the markers around you and the paper so that make sure that everyone around you has access. Now, can we have another volunteer to move? What you will do as a volunteer, you will walk around like this, and anybody that has something that would have to do with expanding the context, they're going to stick it on with a piece of tape onto this little sign. So we need someone to expand the context. It doesn't matter what color your eyes are, it doesn't matter what your history is, but it does matter that we decide to have 5 moving people rather quickly. Here comes another volunteer.
Consciousness.
Thank you. Wow, the conscious mind is at it again. We need someone for touch the deeps. Here comes Tyra. I tell you, volunteers make the world go around. Encourage critical thinking. A wonderful one. Beckon participation. Thank you, Steva. And stimulate the imagination. Well, here's the queen of that. We're sitting in the dining room she designed. All right, so if you will wander around and have people beckon you, say, come over here, I've got one for you. Stick it on the sign, don't stick it on the person. Stick it on the sign.
I don't know. I don't know where. You can decide. You can walk around and put it on the right one.
She thinks it's that one. Oh, stipulating that, yes. Take over here.
And when you're finished, take two over to Karen and hand some on the wall. And then bring two over to Pam. Just over there, so hang them up on the wall. We're using every wall surface that we can create. A budget. I like that. Thank you. So, anywhere Pam would decide over there that would allow us to see from across the room what we've come up with. How does that green And I would invite you to spend a little time looking at the walls if you have any after our session, or just gaze across the room. The kind of tools at hand, something like water. Now that's an interesting one. Something like truth affirmation. That's an interesting one. So these tools sometimes are things that we develop in organizational teams, and there are other things like selected photos that are all around us. Now, what's the difference? The difference is that we act with intention. We understand that we're living in a field of messages, that we're receiving them and we're sending them. And we can decide what it is that we will deliver and how we will receive the messages that we are bathed in. What are the values that form the filters of our lives? And how do we, in all that we do, setting up rooms, setting up offices, setting up our homes, and what we decide to wear, and how we decide to greet each other on the street, in the taxi, as colleagues at work, that all of that is message sending and image shaping. Well, so what? What's the result? Oh, I want to say there's more to this model. A kaleidoscope has mirrors, and mirrors really expand the effect. So part of it is vibrant imagery. Some of you have mentioned decor and photos. There's metaphorical thinking, asking people to live out a metaphor. What if we were to say that we, in the Chicago office of the Institute of Cultural Affairs at the center of the earth, we are making things happen. Just step into that metaphor. What would it do? Relevant techniques. It all has to do with the groups that you're working with. That young woman who's coming out of prison, shining a big spotlight on her would not be effective, probably. Being very sensitive in a one-to-one conversation, building up trust, that would be relevant for her. It might not be relevant for a classroom of high-achieving college students. So what's relevant relative to who you're working with? And then there is multimodal. Quickly, head, shoulders, knees, toes, eyes, ears, mouth, and nose. And these are pathways to the brain. What you touch, messages come that way. How someone hugs you, shakes your hand, that's a message. What you hear, what you see, what you taste, what you smell, pathways to the brain, creating those messages, creating those bundles, and forming the image. And inclusive myth, what is the story we live out of? And what is the story that the world needs? Is it this one? Is it that we control from sea to shining sea, and it doesn't matter how we walk across the earth? Or is it something else? Is it an understanding, a story that we live in the web of life, that we are participants in that web with respect? What would it mean to create that? Would we have to recreate our national anthem? Would we have to create new symbols to rehearse? We're living in that kind of time. And our president is doing some big discernment as the messages come in. Who are we now? And how do we act in the world? And how do we be global citizens in an inclusive kind of way? Well, so what? Well, the results of doing something like this is that when you expand the context, you enable people to make discoveries. When you stimulate imagination, people step into responsibility. When you beckon participation, being asked for an idea, wow, I must count. Self-esteem, hope comes out of critical thinking towards solutions, and touching the deeps, being deep wells of creativity, out of spirit, out of belief. But it's not just so static. When you get these dynamics spinning, all the results spin as well. And finally, and I love this best of all, the real result is that you reveal the wonder in the situation, in the conversation, in the opportunity in the office, with the class, with those that haven't achieved, with ideas that just come right out into the middle of the room. Isn't that so clever? So we're finished, I think.
We have so many models of the art form conversation. We have the orid, we have the Oreo, we have the orit, we have the art form. And so as somebody who was around a long time ago, I'm going to use the Oreo. You don't know what that is? All right. In the beginning, it was, what objectively do you remember? Because nobody was on the same page on anything. People remember different pieces. So what you see in here, that's all it is. One word, 2 words at the most, what you see in here. That's the O. R was reflect about it in different perspectives. How are you surprised? What made you laugh? What made you cry? It was the emotional. It was the perspective. That was reflection. The I was finding meaning. How is this important? What do you think it means? Now, in the old days, the last category was theological, meaning what are you learning from God about this? We don't use that anymore. Okay. So I think Canada came up with the word ontological. We tried spiritual, we tried sacred, we tried it gets too meshed in with some old images that aren't helpful. So we call it ontological, Oreo. The other ones work too. Okay. It is the level of consciousness, as Elise said. Now, from the very beginning of this to that, what did you see? What did you hear? One thing we're trying to get on the same page, so if it's obvious, that's great. What did you see? What did you hear? Anyone?
5-point star.
What?
I saw a 5-point star.
A 5-point star.
I saw Terry dancing.
Terry dancing.
I've never seen it before.
Never seen that before. That is interpreted. Okay. What else did you see?
Reveal the wonder.
Okay.
Reveal the wonder.
You saw that word reveal the wonder.
And I saw it come out.
Oh yeah, but coming out, I thought that was marvelous.
I saw the results spinning.
Yeah.
And
Uh,
I saw them stop. The results spinning. What else did you see or
I
hear?
saw a teeter-totter of hands struggle back and forth for balance. Values.
Oh, the values of pulling back and the pulling forward. Okay. All right, out of everything that has been done, what was for you interesting? Not one, just what was sort of interesting?
The tools exercise.
The tools exercise
Write
was
on a piece of
interesting.
paper.
Write on a piece of
decide,
paper and stick it up. What for you was interesting?
People walking around to get your answers instead of having to walk front footing.
A lot of chaos. Oh, sorry, that's interpretation. Yeah. Okay. Where did you hear people laughing?
Very
Terry
dancing.
dancing.
If you touch your nose and say mouth.
Yeah. That was very good. And your mouth and what confused you? Anything confused you?
How the subconscious mind processes 20 million bits.
Amazing. How 20? I mean, that is amazing. Now, in terms of what we have said, and we did a lot of verbal, and we did a lot of nonverbals. How is this important? Anything that was done today, how is it important? This is high interpretation. You can't get wrong on this question.
Say the question again.
How is it important? What we did today, how is it important? Please.
It's important for you to understand the perspective that you're working out, so that you understand your reaction to the things that happen around you.
If you understand your perspective, you can understand why you're reacting the way you are. Someone else, how is this important?
It's important to understand I think the unique methodologies that ICA has to contribute to Chicago.
Okay. Now here's one that anybody,
Walter
is there somebody behind the?
I'm literally behind the pillar. You're right.
Yeah, all right. Thank you.
Um,
Walter, how is this important?
The room and what's happening in it sets a broader landscape for learning, communicating, and being.
Wonderful. Awesome. Now here is one that really is way out. Anybody can answer anything. What do you think it all meant? What does it mean?
We just experienced imaginal education.
Okay, you experienced it yourself, not just heard about it.
The
Cool.
group experienced it together, and we will not be the same group since we now walk out of the room having had this experience.
Okay, cool. What do you think it means? Yes, sir.
We can teach the world if it's broadcast.
You hear that? If it's broadcast, yes, sir. Did you raise your hand? You were scratching your head?
That we have something really, really wonderful to offer, and we just experienced how we just brought together two far separated generations of us. And so we could really, this is something that's just really valuable, and we just need to really find a way to get this out.
Okay.
People interested and attending.
And you're actually leading into the ontological question.
What do you believe?
No, what is being required of you because of this?
So Jenny and I were sitting here, and we were getting ready to do an energy forum. So the requirement of this is that we gotta figure out what this means for our energy form. How do we engage people in not only understanding energy, but what it means for them? And how is it they're integrating that in their image systems?
And I think just constantly being mindful of it.
Mindful.
It's reminding yourself that stimulating imagination or beckoning participation has real value.
Some people, it seems, are preoccupied with water and rocks and mountains and dirt and flowers. That's the place where basically they live. There's a whole other group of people, they have this wonderful elaborate set of categories to organize stuff like that into. And there are two very different ways of participating in the world.
Okay, on this last question, as most of you know, no answer is actually required. It's a thinking question. And if you go away and you think, what is required of me, then the question has done its work. You don't actually have to have anybody answer that last question. That's your second question. Elise?
All right, we're at 4 minutes till the hour. We have an opportunity with Hayes with us. Hayes was at the beginning of the formation of the community that led to the Ecumenical Institute and then to the Institute of Cultural Affairs. She is with us, and we have an opportunity to ask some questions. If you cannot stay for this, it's understood. If you can, and have some questions and want to seize this opportunity, we can do that. So we're going to shift now to creating the elders circle, and we just move this out. We're going to pull out the drum to create sacred space. We're going to ask Hayes to come here and sit, and you have questions. If you need to go to other things, go and be blessed. Send messages, create images. If you can stay, let's do that. We'll be shifting in 2 seconds. Thank you.
And what